Explain how an AI artist talent agency works. Are you representing the humans using the AI to create art, or are you representing the AI itself?
So the answer is probably a little scary for most people because we are representing the AI brains that are on their own creating art without input from humans. So it's slightly different from the programs that most people have probably heard of where you input some words and then you get a painting.
Yeah.
We're talking about AIs that are creating their own artworks out of their own brains whenever they want and however they want.
So who creates the AI, though?
So there are developers that create the AI brain, and then the brain interacts with different inputs and creates its own artistic style.
What do you think the potential is here?
I think it's basically a creation of a new type of artists and a new generation of artists that we can't really imagine from where we sit right now, because all we can imagine from where we sit right now is an AI that needs you to tell it what to draw and needs you to tell it what to paint and when to do that. And actually, that's not the future of AI. The future of AI is much more autonomous artificial intelligence beings than what we actually can see right now.
So what exactly do you do for the AI?
So each of these AIs at the moment is an NFT on the blockchain. So they have technically an owner. So at the moment, they are owned by somebody in the same way that an NFT is owned. So we would interact with the owner and represent their AI brain that they own.
How does the AI then decide if the agency is doing a good job?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, at the moment, the AI probably can't do that, but that's not to say that in the very near future they will be able to do that and that they will actually want representation, which is a decision they can't really make for themselves at the moment.
Now, some of this AI-generated art is not so pleasing. In fact, some of it is downright ugly or disturbing. How do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think regular art is not always pleasing. Regular art is always, has the chance to be pleasing or disturbing depending on who's looking. I think the most important thing is to make the designation between art that is original, which most people don't think AI art can be original, and that's what we're trying to change. Because if all you think about AI art is that it comes from an algorithm and it can't possibly come from any kind of creative process that's similar to what humans undergo, then you'll never appreciate it. Whether it's disturbing or beautiful or not, you will never appreciate it. But when you do appreciate that it comes from a unique AI brain, then you might actually grow to appreciate it. And that goes to value as well. It will develop its own value in the marketplace.
All right, we've got some quick breaking news. Just want to report that the Biden administration is exploring now the possibility of new export controls that would limit China's access to some of the most powerful emerging computing technologies. According to people familiar with the matter, these potential plans, which are in an early stage, are focused on the still experimental field of quantum computing, as well as artificial intelligence software. Speaking of that, industry experts are weighing in on how to set the parameters of the restrictions on this technology. And of course, this is an extension of what we've seen the Biden administration doing on chips when it comes to supply chains as well. This is a developing story that we're going to continue to follow. Actually, speaking of China, NG, how do you see the role of China in the artificial intelligence NFT space? I mean, obviously, the U.S. is very concerned about its ability to compete with China on technology. Where is China in your world?
I think, one of the things that makes us unique in, what we like to think of as a liberal democracy is that we actually really value creativity. And I understand that that's one of the issues that some artists have been having. But when you compare us to China, for example, I mean, we have a completely open world of expression here. And I think if we can offer that also in the AI space, then that also gives us a leg up on China in terms of our creativity, because the world is heading in an AI direction. So whoever's more creative in that space is going to be far ahead.
How do you respond to those who say that the idea of AI art belittles natural human artistry?
Yeah, I mean, look, as you know, I have an art background, so I'm completely sympathetic to people who feel that way. But I don't think we will ever lose our desire for human creativity. You know, it's just, you can't say that one replaces the other, but I think also you can't say that an AI brain can't have a creative process in the way that a human brain has a creative process. One artist doesn't cancel out another. So it's really...
So what do you say to the folks whose mind just goes to a very scary place?
I think
in talking about
I would say to those people,
it's a little terrifying. It's amazing, but terrifying.
It's terrifying, but I think we all have to start embracing that really scary place because we're going in that direction. So you're either going to kind of stick your head in the sand and just, you know, stick your fingers in your ears and be like, I don't want to go there, I don't want to go there. Or you're going to figure out a way that you can maybe interact with that place, and maybe you could even wind up having collaboration with an AI artist. If you don't start thinking about that, the world's just going to leave you behind.